Welcome to the Multifamily Podcast. Once again, Frank Garay here with my co-host, Matt Sarro. Matt, what's going on?
What's happening, Frank?
Hey, man, just, shaking and moving, my friend, swinging deals like you. That's what we do.
I hear. That's what I hear. That's what you're telling me.
It's what we do.
I see it.
Right? It's what we do. Dude.
February, so you got to kick it off. January's gone. You're like, oh, I got to put my rear in gear.
I mean, come on, man. The year's almost over. I might as well break out the Christmas stuff again. You know what I mean? So anyways, hey, man, let's get into this. I've always wanted to do this, and we thought of this, and we thought this is going to be a great idea, because especially if people are not 100% familiar with buying a commercial property or multifamily, right? What they're looking at. And whenever you look into these types of properties, there's always this thing called an offering memorandum or some sort of narrative, right? That marketing piece that you can look at that tells the story, right? And there's a lot of numbers and things on there. I was hoping you could walk us through one. And we could
there's a lot of fluff. So I'm gonna warn you, a lot of fluff.
Okay, well that's what we want to know.
Competitors will have 50 pages. So we try to keep it down to I think it's 18 or something. But yeah, let's go through it.
All right. So here we are. So here's one. Tell us about this property first. This one is coming back on the market, you said, or?
Yep, it's called Hurley South. It's a 23-unit building. It's right there on Hurley, kind of, I guess it would be Bell is one intersection. And then you go down, you got Howe, but just right in the middle of the Arden Arcade area. What's nice about Arden Arcade is if you go north of this property towards Highway 80, you can kind of get to like the C class, like it's like apartment row, but you go south of this property and they're like the $1 million homes in Sierra Cove, Sierra Oaks, Arden Park. So it's like right in the middle. I call it B building, B location. You're always going to have renters, whether it's families looking for affordability. Sometimes you get the Sac State crowd. Sometimes you just get young professionals. Like my office is just 5 minutes south of this. Get some kids moving out of their parents right there in those communities. But I'd say it's just affordable living, And nice thing about the building, built in 1977. So you got the pitched roofs, the central heat and air. If you go around the neighborhood, you'll see a lot of like the old school. Like if you go up and down Bell Street, you'll see the buildings with like the big old wall units in there. You know what I mean? The siding's all shot. This building is nice. Good bones.
Good bones. Nice building. Okay. What's the price of this one before we get into this?
4.1. We launched it last year at like 4.5 million.
Yeah.
We're kind of reaching for the moon. Owner called us, said, hey, we're trying to find that next property. They're up leg. It's a husband and wife. And let's just be real about pricing. So we're going back to market 4.1.
Okay.
Where we're at.
All right. Well, and we're looking here at the offering memorandum. That's the right way. That's what it's called, correct?
Yep,
offering memorandum. OM. Okay. The OM. And this is going to tell us kind of the story is if we were interested in buying this. So we obviously the first thing here is a snapshot of the front, kind of just gives the address, that type of thing, who the contacts are, you and your team as far as getting more information about the property, that kind of a thing. Usually has a nice opening photo. Now we're going to get to like the table of contents here. So not a lot you have to explain so far. I
was going to make a joke about that cover photo. You imagine us out there, like whatever day it is, sunny, rainy, whatever. We're taking all our pictures. You just kind of know when you get the cover photo. You look around, you're like, that's going to be the one.
That's the one. Yeah, there you go. All right. So here we are, table of contents. So let's look at that summary of terms, property summary, financial analysis, rent roll, property photos, and the location map. So got those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections. Do most OMs have these 6 sections, or does it just depend completely?
There's no. Some people spend a lot of time like on the demographics, like how many cars are passing through, what kind of jobs are in the area. I think when there's like some larger properties, more high level, you'll see a lot of that. But basically, I mean, what everybody wants to see is what's the income coming in on the rent roll.
Right.
The 2024, we're in 2025 now. So like 12 months of financials. So 2024 financial statement. Okay. So essentially what this is, we try to highlight kind of like the best parts about the property, but also we make the rent roll look simple, stupid. When you get a rent roll, sometimes it's got names, security deposit, past due, delinquency, all that stuff. But this, we just put the rents, put the unit mix, and then we break out the expenses. And, and a lot of these, I'll be honest with you, some people will kind of clean up the expenses to look a little bit better. We're guilty of it. But, what we try to do is just put the best, paint the best picture, but also just be realistic with the expenses, because What you don't want to get is a package like this. Then you go look at the expenses, and it's much higher than.
Yeah,
So we
it's
try to
way
keep like
off.
the
Yeah.
best as possible. And then
Yeah.
what we do, we kind of sneak in right there a 360 tour. Go ahead and click on that. Takes you right into a unit. Sometimes these buildings are 100% occupied, so we get a lot of calls from people, hey, can we come out and tour? And we're like,
I
look, until we see some financials and offer,
let's
we don't
see.
want to really disturb the tenants because if you're a tenant living at the building, you might get calls from us, once a week to go show it, and it starts to get a little burdensome. So we try to do these virtual tours in there.
Let me see if I can get it to show here
Oh
because
yeah, it probably popped into
it
another
went
one.
in my other browser. So let's just here it is. Okay. So there you go. Well, that's very
Boom.
cool. Yeah. Wow. And so now I can control
You can
this.
click around, yeah. It's like you're in the building.
Oh.
If you
Yeah.
click on those actual spots, those circles, it'll take you
Yes.
there and it'll show you the next place to click, or you can literally just click wherever you want.
Yeah, wherever you want. Yeah.
Go
Okay,
down the
cool.
hallway to the right. That's just the living room. All of them have patios.
Oh, I
You
see.
know,
Yeah.
I think 17 of
So
these
you can go
23, they redid the
here.
kitchen like you can see in there with new cabinets, countertops, little
Mm,
pulleys on the cabinets. Bathroom, new vanity, new lights. What's nice about this, the bathroom kind of goes to one of the bedrooms there. Kind of like
yeah.
I don't know, is that what they call it, Jack and Jill or
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's very cool. All right. All right. Let's get back to our business
oh yeah,
here.
yeah, back to the game plan.
Let's
But
work
yeah,
now
and the
if I
OM
divide it.
basically kind of highlighting all the package. It's basically just an easy way. If you work with a lot of investors, say they're in a 1031 exchange. I had a call the other day.
Yeah.
It's got all the offerings on a computer, and we're just going over, triple nets, like a Taco Bell in Tennessee, marketing package, like an apartment in Sacramento. It's basically like the offering. And if you work with a lot of syndicators, they kind of do a similar type thing as well when they're looking for money. When they're raising equity, they'll have like a kind of like a pitch deck.
Mm, got it. Got it. Okay. Yeah. So summary of terms here, just a few things about the building, the APN, the zoning, lot size, that sort of thing. And here, oh, okay. So another shot. Just more information about the property. This stuff is
It's like our
pretty.
cute little write-up. Like I was joking about
Yeah.
the cover photo. This is like I just crack up when I'm writing these because we're like sparkling swimming pool on site with
Yes.
a covered parking, but same thing.
Yeah.
It's just a brief
Yeah.
description of the property in the neighborhood.
Got it.
Sometimes we'll
Yeah.
talk a little bit about occupancy in the area, average rent in the area, job creation in the area. With apartments, you like to be by what? The schools, the shopping centers. So that's kind of like some highlights we had in there as well.
Got it. Got it. Financial analysis here. So here we are. We've just got a little bit of information, but here's where it kind of breaks it down. This is pretty common, isn't it? Price per unit.
Yep, price per unit, price per square foot's huge in all aspects of real estate, whether it's residential or commercial. Cap rate, essentially, you're just going to take all the income, you know, for the year. You're going to deduct all the expenses for the year. So if it makes 10 grand a month, you got 120 grand a year. Say 60 of that 120 grand is expenses. So what you're left with is the net operating income of 60,000. If you had a net operating income of 60,000 and the purchase price was $1 million, you just put the income over the purchase price. So 60,000 over 1 million, that would equate to a 6% cap rate.
So
So
it's
just
like your
simple,
yield.
easy
Yeah.
way to say it is just if you bought the building all cash, your NOI at the end of the day over the purchase price.
So it's like if you bought it all cash, it's like you were getting in your scenario, it's like you're getting 6% interest on your investment.
Exactly.
Right? Is that what it is?
Correct. Yep,
Yep.
exactly.
Okay, so that's a great way to look at it. So obviously the higher the cap rate, the better, right?
Mhm.
And then so this is your pro forma. Tell us about that.
Pro forma, essentially what we do, some people overshoot it. Like I said before, being guilty of the expenses. Sometimes you're basically a snapshot of what the property could be in 12 months is usually what a pro forma is. Sometimes people just take all the market rent. So whether they pay $800, 1,000, but we're saying, hey, the market rent is 1,500 for a one bedroom. It's basically if everybody paid that market rent, what your cap rate should look like.
Got
So
it.
kind of selling the dream there.
Well, but a lot of that's valid too, though, because you could have renters that are currently occupying. They've been there for several years, so they haven't like. But if you were starting from scratch today, you could get more for it than what those guys are in at it because they've been in there for a while, and you've been the landlord has been good to them and not really jacked
Yeah.
up the rent and that kind of thing. So
Yep.
yeah. So I mean, technically, going kick everybody out and start fresh. That's right. Yeah. Okay. GRM, gross rent multiplier. Is that what that is?
Gross rent multiplier. Gosh, it's been a while since I refreshed. I should be more on top of this, but honestly, I think the easiest way to explain is at the end of the year after all expenses, if you had about 100 grand, let's
Yeah.
just say 100,000 in your pocket at the end of the year, say your down payment was $1 million, it's going to take you 10 years to recoup that $1 million with 100 grand a year.
I
So that would
got
be
you.
a 10 GRM.
Okay. Good to
So, I
know.
mean, in this instance, it's about 10 years you get your money back that you put in a down payment. Could be a little worse, could be a little bit better, but according
Yeah.
to these financials, that's what we're kind of saying here. And I meet a lot of people who just ask right away, what's the GRM? Because they
Mm,
want to see something where they get their money back in 6 years or
mm,
whatever it is.
mm,
So, yeah, a lot of people look at that. A lot of people look at cash on cash. So
mm,
instead of a cap rate, they'll say, okay, I had to put $250,000 down payment. I get 50 grand in my pocket at the end of the year. It's a 5%, cash on cash. So that
mm.
that's big to people as well.
Yeah. It's so many different ways you can look at it. And it's
Yeah.
the interesting thing about buying property like this is it is so analytically based. It's not it's pretty rare that you find, I don't know, you sell a lot of this, so do you ever find the people that are like emotionally involved, like I just have to have this 16 unit, I just love this thing, or is it just always just it's numbers, man, it's
You
just
see it on the
numbers?
sell side, I'd say much less than residential. A
Mm,
lot of people, they're not really married to the property, but they're married to the price, right? They're like, I bought
mm-hmm.
it at 1 million, I put in 200 grand into it, and I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
believe it's still worth 1 million. So that's the biggest thing I see. But again, it comes right down to the number. And in some sense, I mean, it brings some logic into it, right? Somebody could tell me, hey, Matt, I want $6 million for my property. And sometimes, it's worth 6 million, but sometimes you just break down the numbers and you're just like, look, they're investors. They need to make some money.
Mm,
They can't pay 6 million or they're in the hole,
yeah,
So it helps, but you still get people who are emotional, absolutely.
yeah,
With any
yeah.
piece of real estate, with anything.
All right. Well, that's interesting. 'Cause I would think that there'd be, but probably so much less than on Resi, just so much less, the
I have
emotion.
not had somebody come in and say, I'm not going to buy it because I don't like the kitchen. That's
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. So here we go. Annualized operating income, annualized expenses. So what are we looking at here? This is cool. And you got your current and your pro forma. So you already told us current. That's what we got right now. Performers, what it could be, and under the best circumstances. Right.
Yeah, and
So,
basically, when you get the P&Ls from the owner, it's sometimes just a perfect report from Yardi or whatever management um, program that they use, and it says January, February, March, and so on. It says income coming in, expenses coming out. Well, there's a ton of line items, right? There's like if there was a fire, if there was a car accident, if there was a plumber that came, whatever it is, it's all itemized. So we actually just kind of extrapolate all that information and put it into one package to make it a little easier. And we'll
mm,
kind of bundle them up. So like look at the bottom, repair and maintenance, 33,000. If
mm,
you were to look at his actual P&Ls, it's going to say admin, $6,900. It's going to say pest control, 1936 over the last
mm,
12 months, and we just
mm,
kind of group that up into what we kind of put as these categories.
mm.
And most people, like you were talking before, Frank, when they look at a deal, they're looking at cash flow, whatever. I notice a lot of these guys who do this a lot look right under total expenses where it says percent of gross operating income.
Yeah.
From doing this so long, I mean, when I just punch in somebody's rent roll, I just assume 40% is going to go towards expenses. So
Interesting.
I take a
Okay.
rent roll of 10 grand and I'm like, okay, 4,000 of that is going to expenses every month. You're probably left over with six.
Mm,
So like in this example, it's 46% expenses. So as like an experienced investor, you might say, okay, that's a little higher. I can actually trim the fat a little bit and run it more like 40%, with
mm,
like a cheaper management company,
mm.
maybe cut down some of those expenses. But the reality is, expenses are going up these days. Insurance is through the roof,
Yeah.
utilities are going up. So it actually is going more like 45%. And then when you get a larger building, once you get over 16 units, you have to have an on-site manager. So your payroll, your basically to run your building costs a little bit more. Usually you pay them a little bit of rent to be on
Mm,
site.
mm,
Sometimes you have to give them payroll, you have to pay taxes on that payroll, you have workers' comp. So your expenses actually, as you run a larger property, sometimes run a little bit more expensive because you're running a large business instead of just like a fourplex where you go collect the rent yourself.
mm,
You're paying
mm,
people on site, you're paying more maintenance.
mm.
But hopefully you make that up with having volume, right? More doors, more rent.
Yeah. So it's 16 is the line. 16 units, 16 doors.
Yeah, once you have 16, you're legally supposed to have somebody on site.
Huh.
Like I said before, a lot of people go at the bottom and say, Matt, expenses per unit are 6,000. I'm running my stuff at 8,500. So I think this is actually, from what I hear from clients, around 8,000 a unit on expenses and 45% expense ratio. So this one, I mean, clearly shows if somebody looks quick, like, okay, this seems pretty realistic.
Very cool, man. Vacancy rate 5%. Is that when you say current here, is that what the actual vacancy rate was? Or we just kind
Whether
of
it's
that's an
more or less
average,
throughout the year, that's kind of
pretty
average.
average. Yeah.
This is how we kind of look at it, Frank. Any buyer, if they're not paying cash, is going to get a loan. And the banks and the appraisers, they're going to use a 5% vacancy. So instead of us getting it in contract and getting it appraised and then beating it up, we used to run it on 3% because the market was so tight. Now, I mean, appraisers using 5% again, just because, they build a lot of supply lately, and that's just the number they use.
Mm. So let me ask you this, Matt. So this says annualized operating income, and we've got our gross income, and then all the other incomes that we get are expenses, and this is our net operating income or NOI, right? But down
Yeah.
here you've got this is like when we say so this is just breaking down the expenses individual. This is breaking down the expenses that are up here, this 196.
Yeah, go down one page really quick. So there's our rent roll. You
Uh
see that 33,950?
yeah.
That's my monthly rent on the building. You multiply that by 12 and go up. Go back to where we were. You multiply that by 12 and you'll be at 407,400. So now you got your monthly rent times 12 months. And then we take away a vacancy factor. We plug back in the income for like laundry, some utility reimbursement, some pet rent, parking. And then you got your gross at 421, and then you're deducting all these expenses below. See, 196 is down at the bottom there. We put it back up top,
Got it.
deduct
Okay.
it, and then
Love
so
it.
your gross
Hmm.
income is what you're collecting from the rents. Your net is after expenses.
Got it.
And then we
Okay.
break it down per unit because then again, operator who does this a lot can come in and say, okay, look, okay, number 15 is 1,100. He should really be at 1,400. There's $300 upside right
Mm,
there.
mm.
That we break it down per unit so you kind of know what your upside could be.
Very cool.
Then of course you got your unit mix on there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Your mix. Yeah. 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 All right. Very, very cool. And then we just got some photos, of course, taking a look at the property, the location map, where we are. Self-explanatory stuff here. Stuff we're nearby. All that,
Yeah,
like you were saying, so we know what we're
amenities
close
map.
to.
Yeah,
Hey man, McCooney's isn't far away. That's a
right.
big
We had to
that's
put
a
that
big
in there.
plus. That's a big plus. Yeah. Just some more photos and then more
No, it's
contact
just yeah,
information.
just your aerial. We try to keep it simple.
Well, that was cool. That was cool. It's a good way. Thanks for breaking it down for everybody, man. That was great.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like it, man. I like it. I like it. Okay, so this property, is it back on the market?
Back on the market. We actually
S-
haven't put it back on the market yet, but you'll see it popping up here from my email here pretty soon.
Okay, so it should be back up on the market anytime soon here. So when you're watching this or listening to this or however you're consuming this information, if you want to learn more about this particular property or about any other properties that are in the area, or if you want to sell a property in the greater Sacramento area, Matt Sarro is your guy. He can take care of you. All of Matt's contact information is down below if you're watching us on the magazine or if you're watching us on YouTube, it is in the description. You can get information about this property as well. And now you know how to read an offering memorandum. Don't you feel more educated? I think people feel more educated now. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, man. Anything else before we get out of here?
That's it. Appreciate your time.
All right, man.
For the weather today, the rain finally stopped.
We have sunshine. It's amazing. All right, man. Thanks for this as always, Matt. We'll catch up with you here next time. For the rest of you, we'll see you next time as well. Adios. See you. Bye-bye.
You bet. Thank you. Thanks, guys.